If you work in a predominantly male industry, there's a version of you that doesn't show up on your face. And it's not you trying to be fake, it's trying to navigate the system. Because I found there's a lot to navigate in a predominantly male industry, and we're just not talking about it. So, day in and day out, you have to try to recalibrate and to adjust in order to be heard. Or you want to know more, stay tuned because we're getting into it today.
Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, the podcast where women in predominantly male industries learn to rise, lead, and own their power without apology. And I'm your host, Marie Sonneman. So today we're going to talk about the rules of the game that no one explains. But before we get into it, I am doing a new little segment. So this segment is called The Room I Was In. And it's not really a lesson or a framework. We're just going to talk about what happened, what was said, because sometimes we have to talk about these things. Sometimes we have to talk about these things so we know that they're normal, right? You're not the only one going through it because a lot of us don't talk about it, or it's kind of talked about behind the scenes, but not out loud in the open. So I want to change that. So I'll tell you what happened, what was said, what it earned them or me, I don't know. But yeah, let's just get into it. Clear as mud? Good. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's what happened. I was assigned to a new unit, and I'm not necessarily going to get into all the nitty-gritty of the details, but I was assigned to this unit, and several men left the unit merely from complaining from being in there. They didn't like it. It wasn't for them, and so they threatened to take a demotion as opposed to being in there. Like, nope, I'll just go do this. And all they had to do was complain about it and say it wasn't for them, and they would be moved to another unit, no questions asked, because they didn't want to lose them from the unit that they were in or from the position that they were in. So I think their boss leadership decided it wasn't worth the fight. Let's just move them, keep them happy. We'll do that. So sit with that, think about that for a moment. They were easily moved out just for expressing they didn't want to be there. An accommodation was made, and it seemed like there was some flexibility there. Well, then comes me, and I'm going to be put in that unit, and I just had the death of a family member, and I couldn't deal with it, right? There was a lot of sadness, grief, trauma. So for me, there was a lot about going to that unit that triggered me because it just would keep upsetting me, right? And I asked for help. I vocalized what was going on and why I was feeling that way. I felt like I had to advocate for my own mental health, for my own well being. And so I spoke up. Well, an accommodation was not made for me. There wasn't even like time to think about it. Like, oh, we'll think about it. We'll see if we can figure something out. We'll work on it. No. And I'll be honest, even talking about this is a little bit hard for me. I don't necessarily talk about this kind of stuff, but I do think it's important that we normalize and that we talk about the things that we're going through. So I'm sharing it for that reason. So it was obnoxious to me that men could just say they didn't want it, but have no real reason, like, oh, I'm just going to leave. That's all they had to threaten. But I had a legitimate reason, and no accommodation was made. So just from speaking up, just for saying what was best for my own mental health, then I became the problem child. Like immediately something had to be wrong with me for speaking up and saying what I needed, right? And I was slotted to go and stay there in that unit, and then another woman stuck up for me and she's like, "No, I'll do it." And so if it wasn't for her, then I would have had to go, and it would not have been good for me. But kudos to her for stepping up, for seeing a real need. So I'm not saying this to vent or to rage, be angry, whatever. Like, yeah, I had a reason to be upset for sure. But it's just the fact or the idea that accommodation existed, but not for me. That guys can speak up and not have to have a valid reason, but then women, not the same, right? Even if you have a valid reason. So the people at your work will make exceptions, but they also decide who deserves the exceptions. And until there's more women in these rooms, then the criteria for who deserves it is is going to keep looking the same way it always has. Things aren't going to change. So I didn't stop advocating for myself. I didn't stop speaking up for what was best for me. And you know what? I let that other woman help because she was gracious enough to offer and to see that it was in my best interest. So I wish I could tell you, like, oh, everything was perfect, everything turned out perfect. No, it's life. Not everything turns out how you think it will, right? But it happened. I got through it. I still spoke up. I still said my piece, which to me is the important part. And I think speaking up and being true to who you are, that's the strategy. That's what's going to help get you through, as well as having a community, right? Which actually, now that I said as well as having a community, that reminds me, I do have a free community. Hit me up on Instagram. You can DM me community and get in because we're going to have more of these types of conversations, but probably go deeper. And I'm going to go live sometimes so we can talk in our own private group. But I think it's important that we're having these conversations, talking about the things that we're going through and that are going on. And especially if you're a female and you work in a predominantly male industry, or if you're in leadership, it's like chances are you're the only female in the room or you're outnumbered by far. And so having a community, having a group of people around you that can help you get through it is so important and so powerful. So again, you can head on over to Instagram and DM me community if you want to be a part of that group. I am beyond excited. Okay, let's get to the episode. So today, let's talk about the rules that nobody explained. And this these are going to be the rules that live behind the walls of the predominantly male industries. The one that nobody puts in a rule book, nobody tells you what to do, what to say, how to get through it, not to lose your mind, right? Because when you're going through it alone, yeah, lonely. So oftentimes we have to figure it out the hard way, or you're left trying to figure out, like, wait, why is it different for me? Why is it going different for them than it is for me? How do I navigate this? What should I say? What do I do? All the things. So we're going to name those things out loud and have a conversation about it. Okay, so rule number one, I'm sure you've heard of it, the invisible job description. So you have a second job description and nobody's ever written anything down about it, probably not even told you about it, but you're being evaluated on it. It's a little crazy, right? In predominantly male industries, let's say firefighter, police officer, military, there is a job you're given, but that's not necessarily your official job. There's the job you were hired to do, and then the other stuff that gets clumped on. So maybe you're a party planner. I don't know about you, but like I've had to plan a lot of parties. And it'll get defaulted to the female that's around to plan the parties because typically they're good at that. And sorry to break the news to you, not a good party planner. I try at times, but it's not my jam, right? But it usually doesn't land on one of the guys to plan a party. It's one of the females, most often. Another thing could be the secretary, because you're the one that has to take notes or get the phone calls, get the phone messages. You're the office therapist, right? You're there for emotional support when other people need support. The scheduler, all of the things that typically females would handle, or in the past females would handle, those just get delegated to you. I remember when I've told this story a few times, I don't probably on the podcast, but I remember when I was younger and I was in the academy and we had to act out a scene for our class. And one of my buddies was like, "Hey, Marie, you be the reporter, I'll be the cop." And I'm like, "What? No." I'm like, "I don't want to be the reporter, I want to be the cop." So, like, yeah, I ended up having to act out the reporter because he wanted to be the cop. And it's like, clearly, I wanted to be the cop. I was a cop too. And it was completely innocent. But those are the type of things that happen. It's like we just go back to like the way we were raised or how things used to be. And that becomes the new normal. So here's the insider part or the part that people really don't talk about. It's like if you do your job well, if you do these things, it's just expected. It's handled. But then if you don't do them, then suddenly you're the difficult one. You're the one with the attitude problem. You're not the team player. So yeah, it gets noticed. You're not the team player when you don't help out, but then any of the other guys around you, nothing is ever said about them. It's not held against them for not hosting a party or being the party planner, putting it all together, all those things. So it doesn't make sense. And I know people in other industries that have said the same thing, like women that are in tech or women that are engineers. The women automatically get defaulted to the prior or the stereotypical way of doing things that females to the stereotypical way of doing things, the things that women used to do. And they just assume, like, oh, that's the way it still is. You should still do that. That's still a woman's job. And I'll be honest, there have been times where sometimes a guy will say, like, especially the longer that I've been on and the more comfortable I am just speaking up for myself. If somebody's like, oh, we should do this. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Will you take that on? And I put it right back on them before there's even a chance for me to be volunteered. So it's okay to do that. It's okay to put it back on someone else before they even get a chance to suggest that you do it. But yeah, hit me up. I want to know if you've experienced that one or just seen it play out where in a predominantly male industry, women tend to get certain extra roles and sometimes heck, sometimes maybe they volunteer for it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. If you love throwing parties and you volunteer for that, by all means. I just don't like being delegated that when it's not my thing. It's not what I'm there for. It's not something I'm good at, not something that I necessarily enjoy. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is the repeat rule. It's when you say something and you have to repeat it more than once, just so somebody listens, just so your idea can be heard. And that's not a failure. That's the game. It's almost a requirement if you want your ideas to be accepted. You got to speak up. You got to say it more than once. And sometimes it's like you go to a meeting and you bring an idea forward to everybody there, and then you say it, no real reaction. Everybody just moves on, goes on to the next thing. And then, next thing you know, Chad brings it up 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, and says the same thing that you said, but everybody's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And you're like, "What? What's going on here? Are you guys witnessing this?" So at this point, I'll make a joke about it. Like, I'll just be like, "Is this thing on?" And act like I'm tapping a microphone or something and just make a joke about it. Or I'll be like, "Oh, interesting. I feel like I heard that somewhere." And then people usually laugh and we move on. Or there has been a time or two where somebody will come back and be like, "Oh yeah, Marie actually did say that earlier." And they come back and address it, which is good. But here's where, if I had to guess, where I think a lot of women go wrong is, and maybe go wrong is too strong a phrase, but I don't think that people are bringing things up multiple times. There are definitely times where I bring something up and it goes flat and or someone turns it down, my boss, somebody higher than me says, "Nope, not a good idea," or "No, I don't think we're doing that," or they just don't really acknowledge it or address it. And it's like, and I know in my gut it's a good idea or it's in the best interest of the company, right? So then I have no problem bringing something up several different times, not in the same day, right? Give it a little space. And so, yeah, I'll bring the same idea up. And sometimes maybe I approach it face-to-face conversation the second time. So, okay, I'll vary it up. The next time, I will say something in email. I'll let them know in email, "Hey, here's an idea." And a lot of times I don't remember that I even told them that the first time, right? So, yeah, I don't care. I have no shame. I will bring an idea up 4 or 5 times, and then it gets accepted and it's, "Oh, it's a great idea." Or people get irritated when they say their boss steals their idea or someone else steals their idea. Me, I don't take it personal. Steal my ideas. Go right ahead. If it's in the best interest of the company, I don't care. And I still use it to my advantage. If I pitch something to my boss and then it gets accepted and it makes a big impact and it's helpful, you better bet I'm bringing that up later. I will say that in my eval, or I will say that for my next promotional opportunity. Like, "Oh yeah, I suggested we implement this to my boss and we implemented it and here's the impact that it's had." So like, just because somebody steals your idea doesn't mean you lost, or it doesn't mean you still can't use it. Keep it in your arsenal for when you're going for a promotion or moving up, or maybe you need to write a new resume, right? You could still use those things because you suggested the change. It was your idea. So don't sell yourself short. Just because somebody else is selling yourself short doesn't mean that you need to sell yourself short. I just realized I am getting my hands and my head going, my neck going over here. So yeah, bear with me. I'm passionate about this. But some of this isn't even like a guy girl thing. It's like certain ideas take time to land. And that's just human nature. Sometimes the idea is too new, too much of a shock, so somebody's automatically gonna say no, but I don't know. Is it negotiations where it's like you takes 5 no's to get a yes or 3 no's to get a yes, so you actually want to hear the no? So just keep that in your head like, "Oh, no, this is just a negotiation. If I hear a yes, then I'm eventually, or if I hear several no's, I'm eventually gonna get to a yes." Okay, let's talk about the tightrope of being assertive. This is an interesting one. If you're working in a predominantly male industry, there's like a tightrope to walk. There's a narrow path you have to walk with how you behave, what's considered acceptable. Because if you're too soft, nobody's going to take you seriously. If you're too direct, then all of a sudden you're aggressive. If you're too emotional, then you're unstable. If you're unemotional, then they just think you're a cold B word. And men in the same environment, they have a much wider spectrum of emotions that they're allowed to feel, that women just aren't as it's not as accepted for women to behave that way. So they can be loud, they can be blunt, angry, combative, any of those things, and that's okay. That comes across that comes across as confidence or passionate or, "Oh, what a good leader. They'll speak up." But you know what? The same behavior in a woman reads completely different. So this sucks. It's not fair. And I'm not going to pretend that it is. But I am going to give you ideas of what you can do with it. Be direct and be brief. So, in rooms that are not built for you, long explanations can be a detriment to you. Long explanations can be a detriment to you. So, say what you mean, say it clearly, and then stop talking. Just let it land, leave it there. And I would say just watch your emotions or your emotional temperature, not because it's bad or wrong to feel emotions, but because that room might use it against you. You have to figure out where it is safe to use your emotions and who are safe people to display those emotions with. So I think there's a time and a place to show different emotions, passion, frustration, that you care, any of those things. But if you're in the middle of a promotion, say, not necessarily the place to be angry or all over the place with your emotions, right? Or there's just different scenarios. Maybe you're in a meeting with a group of people and everybody doesn't need to know what's going on. But to me, here's the big thing. It's like I am going to show my emotions for people who deserve it. I'm not going to put myself in a bad situation. And I once had a boss, we did not get along at all. Just completely butted heads. And yeah, we just butted heads. That's the best way to say it. So you know what? I showed no emotion. I always had like a straight stoic face, like I can't even mimic it right now. I just did like a Zoolander face. But I always had a straight face and just showed no emotion either way, not happy, not sad, because I wasn't going to give him that. I wasn't going to give him anything extra. So he couldn't say that I hated him, but he also probably didn't know that I liked him. I mean, I didn't, but but I just didn't give anything either way. And he even said that. He's like, "Marie, when I talk to you, I don't know how you feel. I'm not getting feedback from you." And I'm thinking, "Yes. Yes. That's exactly what I wanted." He doesn't need to know how I feel. It's not a safe space, right? So pick and choose who you're showing those emotions around and if it's a safe space for you to do so. If not, feel free to just lock it down, shut it down, right? You don't have to show those things. It's my game face. And here's the thing, when you're one of the women, you're automatically at the minority when you're in a predominantly male industry. If you're in a leadership role somewhere, supervisory role, chances are there's more men than women. So just by mere numbers, the room isn't going to adapt to you. So if you don't want to bang your head against the wall the whole time you're there, you have to adapt to certain things that they're doing because you're outnumbered. You're outnumbered. But I know that's hard to hear, but often the women who advance have figured that out. They've learned how to navigate. It's something you shouldn't have to do, but it is part of it. So I think a big thing is like, you can't change a room if you're not in it. We need you in these leadership positions. We need you to help make a change. We need more women to take a step forward and at least pave the way for future generations. And that way we can change it from the inside. So that's the goal. Get in the room and then change it. Okay, rule number 4. Let's talk about exceptions and the exception gap and the difference with exceptions. Men get exceptions. Women may not. And that's just how it works. And a lot of times, how you handle it can absolutely define your reputation. And when we started off, you heard my story. I told you about mine about having an exception for me, but it worked for the guys. Having a legit reason for myself didn't work. So I'm not going to retell the story now since I told it at the beginning of this episode, but I also want to name what's actually happening because it's bigger than my unit, bigger than my workplace or my agency that I work at. It's bigger than the agency I work at, bigger than just law enforcement. This kind of thing is happening everywhere. If you work in a predominantly male industry, there's probably an informal rule of exceptions. There's probably an informal system of exceptions. And it was just built that way. People don't have to be intentionally doing it, right? It could just be, this is what I've always done, so I'm sticking with that. This is how it's always been. So yeah, a guy can push back, make noise, threaten to leave, and then be given a different assignment just based on that. And if a woman has a good reason and asks for an exception, she can be the problem child. So I think it's helpful to have awareness, to just know that this like dynamic exists and that it's a thing and you're not imagining it. You can make informed choices and decide what you want to do. Do you want to push back? If it's something you're passionate about or feel strongly about, do you want to push back or do you want to let it go this time? That's up to you. You're not wrong for either way because there's a lot of things I would have spoke up about early in my career. I wouldn't have ever pictured myself speaking up about things. But like now, the more that I speak up, the more I speak up. And I think the more relationships you build, friendships you build with your coworkers, the people you work with, then they stick up for you too. Look at the situation where the other woman stuck up for me. She didn't have to do that. Absolutely not. It meant the world to me. But like I accepted her help. And that's a strategy. Accept other women's help. If a guy's offering help, sure, that too, right? Oftentimes as women, we think we have to do it all and just take on more. Yes, yes, yes. Uh-uh. Nope. Sometimes we have to set a boundary. Sometimes we have to ask for help and accept help. Okay, let's talk about adapting. Rule number 5, the room will not come to you. You have to go to the room. And that's not the same as losing yourself. So kind of like we talked about a little bit earlier. you're the minority. By the fact that you're a female, you're the minority. And so you have to adjust to the people in the room. They're not going to adjust to you. It's a numbers game. So when I talk about adapting to the environment, speaking more directly, managing your emotional temperature, learning the unwritten rules, just how to navigate the environment. And this would have been me, but I also hear plenty of other women say, like, oh, well, I don't want to change who I am. And I get that because you should not have to. But also, I'm going to gently push back. So, adapting to the environment, adapting so that you can be successful is not the same thing as changing who you are. It doesn't mean you have to become someone that you don't recognize. I don't care what room you're in, even if it's a room of all women. You walk into a room of women strangers, you're still going to have to adapt, right? Every situation we're in, we have to adapt. And you know what? You probably talk different to your best friend than you do to your boss or in the middle of a meeting. I know I do. So that's not being authentic. That's just the range of who you are, right? We have a ton of different aspects of ourselves and who we are. So what I'm saying is develop professional range to the ability to show up in a room that wasn't built for you, in a room where you're absolutely the minority and still be effective, still be heard, still be yourself. Just be the version of you that knows how to navigate this specific room. So a lot of the women that I've seen advance didn't become men. Actually, they became more of who they were. They learned to speak the language of the environment, to be more direct, get to the point. So you just kind of have to navigate, learn when to speak, learn when to let the silence do the work. Both are okay. And then if you're doing things right, as a woman rising, you make things a little more hospitable for the women coming up behind you. You try to make things better for them. To me, that's my job. That's the whole thing. Is like, yes, I want it to be to a place where it's no longer called male dominated industry or predominantly male industry. No, let's wipe that shit out because it'll be equal. So, yeah, get in, change it, and then give the directions to the next person. Give them the guidebook, help them along. All right, let's do a quick recap of the 5 rules that no one explains. Rule number 1 is you have a second job description. Be strategic. Be strategic about what parts of it that you take on. Rule number 2, you will have to repeat yourself. Say it verbally. Next time, put it in writing or follow up in writing. And don't feel like you have to stop because you hear 1 or 2 no's. Remember the rules of negotiation? Rule number 3, you're walking a tightrope that most men don't have to walk. Be direct, be brief, manage your emotions, manage the temperature strategically. And just because you adapt to the room does not mean that you're abandoning yourself. Remember, number 4, men get exceptions that you might not get, but it's something to be aware of. That awareness is your protection. And find the people who can help you navigate it. Find the people who can help you navigate these rooms and let them help you. And number 5, remember, the room will not come to you. Go to the room, get in, get your other girlfriends in, and then change it. So if this episode hit home, if you've been in any of the rooms like we talked about today, then I want to hear from you. Definitely hit me up on Instagram, DM me, let me know what resonated. Again, comment community in my DMs if you want to join my free private community, and I'm so stinking excited about it. But also, if you think somebody else could find this episode useful, share it with them. Share it with the woman who needs it. And here's the thing, is like, you're not behind. You're probably just missing information. You're missing the guidebook because nobody gave it to you. I don't hear this stuff talked about a lot. And that's different from failing. That's fixable. Okay. Okay, until next time, keep showing up, keep speaking up, and never ever shrink for a seat at the table because you were born to build it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future Spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.